Thank you very much, Jordi. The title may be a bit weird to some of you who was here 2 years ago at the same meeting, because then I was talking about 5 years of EasyBuild. So EasyBuild cannot do time travel yet. We're working on it. No, back then it was 5 years of stable EasyBuild. And now I'm talking about the start of the project. So that's why it's 10 years now.
Have an anniversary every year.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we'll work on it. Next year it will be 15. For people that don't know me yet, I work at Ghent University, did my studies there, I'm a computer scientist. I joined the HPC team in Ghent in 2010. Mostly take care of user support, and a big part of that is software installations. And as a part of that, I'm responsible for EasyBuild. And gradually I also became the, let's say, the lead of the project, the release manager. And I'll talk a bit more about how that happened. HPC Ghent is part of the Ghent University in Belgium. We're central at the university. We're part of the Flemish Supercomputing Center. And we're, let's say, a small team. We're 8 people. We have a couple of clusters, but they're fairly small, so we're definitely not a big HPC site. For the people that don't know EasyBuild yet, so I'm not going to focus too much on technical stuff in EasyBuild. So it's going to be a bit of a different talk than what Todd had. I really want to focus on how things happened in the last 10 years, where we are at now, and where we want to go, the things we want to work on in the future. So much like SPAC, EasyBuild is a tool. I like calling it a framework instead, for installing scientific software on HPC systems. We try to build from source. By default, we target the host architecture, so we care a lot about performance. It's currently implemented in Python 2. We're working on Python 3 support. That should be there quite soon. We have lots of supported software. We install different architectures, compilers, MPI, all the stuff you could expect. And one of the key things, certainly today, is we have a very nice community around it. I'll skip this terminology stuff. It's not really that important. How EasyBuild works is you use the main EB command. I don't like typing, so it's not EasyBuild, it's EB for short. You give it the name of what we call an easyconfig file, which is, in SPAC terms, it's a concretized DAG, so it has all the necessary information there. And like Todd mentioned, a human needs to put this together and fix all the versions or tell EasyBuild what to use. So when you hit enter, it starts building TensorFlow from source. Which may take a while, a bit longer than what I'll show here on the slide, but eventually the installation should work, and you'll get a module for it. For TensorFlow, you can do module load TensorFlow and get started with using TensorFlow. Correct me if I'm wrong, Todd, but I don't think SPAC supports TensorFlow yet. Yeah, because it's nasty to get it supported, and what we do with EasyBuild is it downloads a whole bunch of stuff on the fly, because it's very difficult to build TensorFlow in another way. And we just basically gave up on, let's say, properly packaging it. But it works. You just need to be online to get it working. In the background, it does this stepwise installation procedure, much like, I guess, SPAC does as well. So it goes through the whole cycle. It checks on itself at the end, makes sure that things that should be there are there, simple commands that you should be able to run on top of the installation work, and if it's happy, it generates a module, and it wraps things up. Each of these steps, again, much like SPAC, can be specified or customized whenever you have to, so you can basically define what the configure step means for a certain package, or it can be very generic, so all that is done quite flexibly. Feature highlights, it can do a whole bunch of stuff. The core of it, of course, is building and installing the software, making sure the dependencies are there first before it installs the software you told it to. We generate module files, and you can pick whether it uses Stickle or Lua syntax, so we have very good integration with LMOD. You don't need to be root, you don't need admin privileges for installing software, you just need write permissions to where it will install the software, that's enough. It has a thorough log of what it did. It archives everything that you need to reproduce the software later. There's a lot of configuration options and 3 configuration levels. You can easily extend it with support for additional software by giving it more easy blocks, easy config files, maybe even toolchains if you want to go that far. You can fully control the module naming scheme, and we have good support for using a hierarchical module naming scheme. You can get an idea of what it will do before it will actually do something. In a matter of seconds, you can get like an overview of the commands it will run and all the nasty things it will do to get the software installed. Or you can do that while it's running. A bit different from SPAC, maybe we do a lot of work on testing both EasyBuild itself, the core, which is what SPAC also does, but we also do a lot of regression testing. Whenever we do an EasyBuild release, we rebuild all the easyconfig files we have. We try to make sure nothing breaks before we do the release, and if we're happy with that, we actually go ahead and do the release. We have done frequent stable releases. I'll talk a bit more about that in a bit. And today, and this is not what we expected initially, but today it's a collaboration between sites all around the world who help out each other, who share their easyconfig files, who tell each other what works, so we can leverage each other's work really easily, really quickly, and has integration with a whole bunch of tools. You can tell EasyBuild to submit installations as Slurm jobs on the cluster, which means you can basically parallelize an installation of a whole bunch of software, and you can leverage the power of the cluster you have to provision it with a bunch of software. We have recently good integration with Singularity. EasyBuild can generate container recipes and build them for you, and use EasyBuild inside to install the software in the container. We have good support for running on Cray systems as well if you have enough money to buy a Cray, things like this. Supported software, this number is a bit lower than what SPAC has, but you have to basically add the 1,000+ extensions we have as well. Python packages, R libraries are done a little bit differently than compared to SPAC, but I would say overall it's pretty much on par between both projects. About 3,000 different software packages supported in both. It's pretty close. A whole range of compilers in API and BLAS LAPACK. I won't spend too much time on that. What EasyBuild is it's not a replacement like CMake or Make. We just wrap around whatever you need to use to install the software. We don't really replace traditional package managers either. You will still need those on your system because EasyBuild leverages some of the things that you typically provide through a package manager, and then basically takes over and takes control of the rest of the software. And it's not magic, right? You will still run into compilation problems if you try things that people have not tried before, or if your system is, for whatever reason, a bit more different than other people's system. It's a uniform interface for installing software. It can save you a lot of time. It's a way to provide a consistent software stack to your users, so whoever does the installation, you can't really tell from the outside because it spits out modules. The modules look the same no matter who does it. We work together, so it has gradually become an expert system. People help out each other, put in small fixes or small improvements to make the installations better. Users can use it to manage their own software stack in their user account on top of what we provide centrally on the clusters. So if they, for some reason, want to have a different configuration of a software package, they can just pick the easyconfig file for that software package, make any changes they need to make, and just rebuild that, and everything else in terms of dependencies they can leverage what's already there. And we see more and more of our users, and other sites are reporting this as well, starting to realize that they can do this. And you can use EasyBuild to build optimized container images as well for the software you care about. So that was very quickly, in a nutshell, what EasyBuild can do. It can do a whole lot more than what I mentioned here, but hopefully you get the idea a bit. What I want to do is focus a bit on how EasyBuild started and how it has evolved over time. So, and when I was working on this talk, I realized there were like 5 different phases. So initially, and I have slides for each of them. The first phase was really the in-house development we did. So EasyBuild was started to scratch our own itch. So back in the day, in 2000, the team was started in 2008. We had our first cluster I think by the end of 2008. By summer 2009, it was clear, okay, if we have to support all of these users who are asking for lots of software. Back then, there were 2 technical guys, and one of them left around this time, I think. So it was one guy that had to install all of this software, and he was just going crazy. And over summer, and there's a funny story behind it. If you buy me a beer, I'll tell you more about this. He started the project just out of sheer need after looking for things that maybe could help him with this, and there was nothing there. So SPAC Todd was not even born yet, so it was nowhere close. And there was just nothing out there that we could find, at least, that could help us. So I joined the team in 2010, and after a couple of months, because it became clear that I would be doing user support, they gave it to me and said, here's this pile of crappy Python code, which we call EasyBuild, and we really need it, and you'll have to make it bigger and better, and it's yours now. So it actually took me like a week to figure out what the thing was doing, or how it was doing it, because back then it was a big mess. And we did work on it gradually. We added the software, mainly software that we needed to add for our users. And actually we had a couple of very good summer interns who did a lot of refactoring, like redesigned EasyBuild, pulled it apart, put it back together in a better way, introduced us to the concept of unit tests, because we didn't have any unit tests at all in the beginning. We figured we wrote the code, we know the code, so why would we need tests for it? We quickly learned that, if you write a couple of tests and you make some changes and the tests break, like, oh, we actually broke something. So that was not there initially. And gradually we were becoming more and more confident that maybe this could be useful for somebody else as well, which brings us to the second phase. We had a first public release in April 2012 because we were crazy enough to write a paper on EasyBuild for the HAPEX conference. Initial feedback we got was very positive, so people were finding out about the presentation and contacting us afterwards and say, how do we start using this? Because we had zero documentation back then. And people actually started picking up on it, which was already a bit surprising for us. They gave us feedback, we improved things a bit based on the feedback. And actually quickly after the first public release, we had an EasyBuild 1.0 release at Supercomputing. Literally the night before we had the talk at Supercomputing, we did the 1.0 release from the exhibit floor. And then if you want to be a serious project, you need a logo. So we started figuring out logos, and then we played around a bit, and we're not really graphical designers, so we came up with this crap. And then after having a bunch of, it's Belgium, we were having beers on Friday afternoon in the office. We started brainstorming the logo, and somebody took some pens and drew it on the whiteboard. It should look something like this. Somebody else took a picture, traced it, and since then that's the logo. So beer helps to do graphical design. So after that, after having 1.0, which is like the start of the third phase, we became stable. So we started testing really extensively before doing a new release. We wanted to make it clear to people, like, you can rely on this. If something has worked in 1.0, it should still work many months later, at least as long as there's a 1.x release, it should keep working, and EasyBuild just gets better, has support for more software. So we started doing lots of releases. A community started growing around it. We started doing conf calls because we had people all over Europe and even in the US and Canada who started using the project, and we wanted to report on what we were working on, what kind of problems people were running into, so we could help out each other. We started doing hackathons, which were like a combination of EasyBuild tutorials, and then after introducing people to the tool a bit, letting them play around with it, letting them try to add support for new software, and if it worked, then explaining to them like how they could push it into EasyBuild and make the tool better. And that worked out quite well. I think we had about 10 of these hackathons over the couple of years, and we even did one in Austin together with one of the supercomputing conferences. We had several of these BOF sessions as well. These were just like, we made them generic, and we also, once SPAC popped up, we also told Todd, like, you should give a talk here as well. So we made it very open. But it was really a disguise for promoting EasyBuild at Supercomputing, which kind of worked. So people, that was, sorry? That was after I joined your IRC. Yeah, maybe, yeah. I think you popped up in our channel at some point and told us about SPAC, and then, this was already going on then, and we just gave you a slot there. LMOD has been presented there as well, so we kept it very open, and we've been very open since the very beginning. Some of the major enhancements and developments in 1.0, which is a long time ago, we added support for what's now extensions, so installing Python packages and R libraries basically in a bundle in a single installation directory, so that's why this count is a bit separate from the others. We changed the way you can configure EasyBuild. Somebody from NVIDIA added support for dry run, which gives you an overview of what should be installed and what's installed already. Because we started running into problems with the Tickle modules tool, because EasyBuild was making big changes in the environment, we started looking at Lmod, which worked a lot better than the old Tickle modules tool, which hadn't been updated for years. We added support for Lmod, and since then we've been very happy with it. Together with the people from Jülich, we added support for a custom module naming scheme rather than using the fixed one we had in EasyBuild. And we also added support for the GitHub integration. So once there was a pull request for an easyconfig file, you could tell EasyBuild, just grab this easyconfig file and install it. And then also push back a test report into the pull request, just all from the command line. And this was really helpful to test contributions. So to show you how this works, you can use EB from PR. You give it a pull request number. It goes onto GitHub. It grabs the easyconfig file, or maybe multiple ones in that pull request, downloads it, gives it to EasyBuild, and EasyBuild does the installation. And typically, you probably don't want to do this blindly in production, but you do it in a test prefix just to see, first of all, if the installation works. And second of all, you can then play around with the installation a bit to make sure it's actually what you need and it works properly. And if you combine this with upload test reports, so you use both, not only will it do the installation, but it will also push back a test report in the pull request. So this looks like it's just a comment, so it uses the GitHub API and the GitHub token. So it creates a comment with your account on GitHub, which says success or failure, and it gives some information on like which CPU it was, because maybe it failed because of the OS or whichever CPU you had, or whichever Python version you were running, God knows. And if you click so each of them has a link with a gist. If you click the gist, you get a more detailed report. How long it took, you also get a dump of the environment and all the dependencies that were used. And if it failed, you get a link to another gist which has the partial build log. So if somebody opens a pull request to contribute something, we can upload the test report. If it fails, the contributor can look into the build log and see why did it fail for them, and maybe already figure it out without us having to talk to them and explain it. So we did this to like enable the contributor to improve the contribution without us actually looking at it ourselves too much. We just fire the build, and if it fails, they know about it and they can maybe fix it by themselves. EasyBuild 2 was released 2015 in March, where we made a couple of breaking changes. So that's one of the few points in the history where we made backwards incompatible changes, and we made it very clear in the release note, and we had workarounds for each of these changes to make it as easy as possible to make the jump to EasyBuild 2. Whoops. So during this time, we saw a fast growth in the number of supported software packages because more people were using it, more people were contributing to it, and it started exploding a bit. As a sort of hobby project, and this was done on the weekends together with an easy builder, a guy who picked up an EasyBuild who works in Austria. We added support for Cray, just because through CSCS we got access to their Cray system, and we tried using EasyBuild there, and the Cray environment is so weird. You really have to be very careful what you do there, and EasyBuild was not ready for it. So we just started hacking it until it was ready. We gave it to CSCS, and they've been using it since. I'll explain it a bit more. EasyBuild became a lot faster. We moved from Jenkins, which could not cope anymore with the contributions we were getting. So we had a self-hosted Jenkins setup, which was choking on the EasyBuild contributions, and we needed it for other tests as well. So we moved to Travis, which is in the cloud, and everything is magic and has infinite resources, sort of. Common compiler toolchains, and this is also like the time when Spack emerged and Todd jumped into our chat and said, hey, I have this better thing, you should use this, and then we called him an idiot for doing weird things like making everything flexible. So that's when we started talking to each other as well. The integration with Cray was done in 2015. We made it an experimental feature first, so we gave it to CSCS and an EasyBuild release, and we said, see if this works for you. If there are any problems, let us know. And then after fairly long time. It took us like a year to declare it stable, or to let CSCS say, okay, this is now good enough. We think this will work going forward. We declared it stable. What we did is we added custom tool chains that integrate with the Cray programming environment. So you get a tool chain that says for progenv GNU together with libsci and the Cray image MPI library, this forms a specific Cray tool chain, and then we slap a version on it that's related to the version of the Cray PE. And there's a couple of other things we had to add. One thing which was also useful outside of Cray, is support for external modules. So external modules are modules that are on the system but are not installed through EasyBuild. So EasyBuild needs a bit more information and able to pick up on them. And on Cray, you really need to do this because they provide optimized installations for things like HDF5, and you really want to make sure you use them and not build your own thing. And then a lot of time had to be spent on being very careful what you do with the Cray modules. So if you log into a Cray system, there's like 30 modules loaded. You even have a module loaded for the modules tool, which is, it doesn't make sense, but that's what they do. And you cannot do things like module purge, or you have to be very careful when you're swapping modules in and out. So we had to tell EasyBuild, yeah, don't do this, but do something else, which is a bit more involved to make that work. Since then, EasyBuild has been using it on Ghent, which is the biggest or the fastest supercomputer in Europe, and it's been stable ever since. So they've been rolling out, installing software on Ghent through EasyBuild since then, and there's very little problems that pop up. There was a problem in the last release, which was a bit of a corner case. Another thing we did in this era was defining common tool chains. So we noticed that people were like using different tool chains all across different sites, and there was not a lot of convergence. So we told the community, like, okay, we recommend using this Hoste tool chain, which is open source software, or an Intel tool chain, which is everything Intel with our own GCC underneath. And we said, okay, we're going to pick versions for this every 6 months and name this a common tool chain. So the latest version we have is 2019A. We'll do the B one in the coming weeks. And then this helps focusing the effort of the community a bit. If everybody uses these tool chains, we can more easily reuse each other's easyconfig files, and everybody helps out each other even more. And that has been picked up gradually, so I have some stats on this, but I didn't include them in the slides. Most people in the community use these tool chains, and maybe other custom ones if they have to, or if they think they need to. Major developments here, more features, only with generating module files in Lua. The extend support we have now, so you can dynamically give EasyBuild a bunch of additional Python modules which add support for more software. Maybe for some reason you want to keep this support to yourself because it's proprietary software, or just because you had to customize it specifically for your site for whatever reason. External modules, the EB-X support, which I'll show in a bit, and also more GitHub integration, which I'll show as well because it's quite cool. The EB-X basically is a way to get a view on what EasyBuild would do without it actually doing it. So this runs in seconds, no matter what kind of software you would install, and it just gives you an overview of what EasyBuild would do without actually doing it. This is an example for Wharf with EB-X. If you run this, almost instantly you get a report like this. It says, okay, I'm going to use this easy block, this Python file which I found on this location. I will use this easyconfig file which I found on this location, so you can dive into it. I need this tarball as a source, and I haven't found it yet, so I will try to download it from these locations, and if that works, I will put it there. These are the build commands that I will execute, so compile Wharf, compile these two other things that give you additional binaries. And once that works, I will make sure the installation looks okay by checking for these files, checking for these directories, and maybe also running commands, which are none in this case. And then the module file that I would spit out may look something like this. So you get like a very quick, detailed overview of what EasyBuild would do if you would not use the -X. This was, yeah.
How does the output differ from the old dry run?
Oh, the dry run is just a list of dependencies, like one per line, and it just says, okay, these are marked as X because I found them, and the others are still missing. So the dry run is very, very different. Yeah. So that's why we call it extended dry run. Yeah. Okay. Dry run was already taken. And another thing we realized is that, or that we learned is that Git can be a bit of a hurdle for contributors. So people were telling us, EasyBuild is really nice, it has helped us a lot. But do we really need to learn Git to be able to give us give you our easyconfig files? I mean, I don't want to do that. I'm a support person. I'm not developing software. I don't want to learn Git. I don't need it for my job. So this was a bit of a frustration that we had, and over Christmas holidays at some point I started playing with the GitHub API to try and do something about this. So here's an overview of what you typically should do when you want to contribute to EasyBuild. So you create a GitHub account, maybe you don't have one yet. You fork our easyconfigs repository and you clone it on Git, and don't forget to change this part. You only have to do the setup once, of course. And then once you have an easyconfig file that worked and that you want to give to the community, you check out a funny branch name, you add, so first of all you need to figure out where to put the easyconfig file, because we have a certain structure and we have a certain naming scheme for the easyconfig files, which is important, so you have to know about this first. Put it in the right place, do git add, git commit with a sensible message, push the branch to your remote. That's step one. Then you go to GitHub. If you're quick enough, you get this nice shiny green button that you can click, or otherwise you have to pick the branch and then start opening the pull request. When you open the pull request, there's a bunch of things you have to keep an eye on. We tell you to target our develop branch, because that's where we're working on the next release, while our master branch is the release that's already there, so we don't change that. We ask you to follow this format we have for PR titles, which has the software name, the version, the tool chain, which is it makes it easy for us to scroll through the pull request and see what is what. Maybe you can give a sensible description. If needed, you better double check the files, because maybe you added stuff by accident that shouldn't be in this pull request but somewhere else. And if you're very sure, you can create the magic green button and you're done. Well, not really. So once your pull request is open, Travis will test it. This is automatic, so it doesn't need human intervention. Hopefully the tests pass. If they don't, you'll have to make some more changes. And then one of the EasyBuild maintainers will eventually review your pull request, test it through the upload test reporting. And based on that, you may have to make changes, which means you have to go back to this Git thing, and you may have to do this cycle a couple of times. If you have to make updates, you have to figure out what the branch name was. Check out the branch name, use Vim, because what else, to edit the files. Git commit again, git push again, and maybe do this a couple of times. So, many people were like, what the fuck, I don't want to go through all of this. I just want to give you my easyconfig file. So, and all of this for a project that says we're automating things. And it clashes somewhere, it doesn't add up. You even have to use your mouse. So this was annoying to many people, and it started annoying me because it was annoying people in the community. So I started working on the better GitHub integration that we have now, and that we pretty much everybody uses now. So we added support to the EB command to open pull requests from the command line. So you give it an easyconfig file. It doesn't care how it's named or where it is. It just picks up on it. It's a single command. You don't have to interact with Git directly. And you don't even have to click on GitHub. EB does everything for you. It will pull down the develop branch in a temporary location, copy the easyconfig files in the right place in there. Let's see, it will create a branch for you with a sensible name, which has a relation to when you did it and what's in the easyconfig file. It will do the git commit as well, so it will make sure things are in the right place. Prepares the pull request, so it makes sure that you're targeting develop. It auto-generates the title and the description. Well, the description is useless, but the title is important because it follows the formatting we expect. It will give you an overview, so at least you know you didn't include something by accident. And then it will go ahead and open the pull request by talking to the GitHub API. So all of this is now equivalent to this. So this was what you need to do before, a very summarized version. Hopefully you didn't make any mistakes. Now it's a single command. So no Git interaction, no GitHub interaction. And one hidden plus is you don't have a local branch anymore in your working repository because it was done in a temporary location. So you don't have this gazillion branches that you have to clean up and figure out which you can delete. It's just all done automatically. Same thing for updating a pull request. You just have to give it a pull request number. And here we do force that you give it a commit message yourself rather than auto-generating something, because if you're updating an existing pull request, please tell us why or what you're changing. And then it's the same thing. It pulls down the right branch in a temporary location, puts the easyconfig file where it should be, shows you an overview of the diff, equivalent to git stat, and then it pushes the updated branch back to GitHub, which updates the pull request. So not this, but single command again. Yeah.
So that's really slick, and I'm kind of really envious. Do you find though that does it create like noise for you with people, accidentally throwing this flag to see what it does and creating pull requests and that you didn't mean to do, and now you have to?
No, not really. No, we haven't seen this. Actually, we see the exact opposite. We see that people who open a pull request, first of all, they have to check on less things, like develop branch, PR, title format. They have to check a lot less things. And even for us, I know Git quite well. I use this all the time because I don't want to keep double checking all of these things. It saves you so much time. And also when you noticed in the pull request description, we said opened with new PR. If a maintainer sees that, he also knows that he doesn't have to check on all these things because it was automatic. So there's lots of time you save on this. I have some statistics on what difference this made for the community as well. Yeah.
Do you have to, so does the pull request that gets created include the dependencies of the config file that gets submitted?
No, well, not necessarily. They may already be there in the develop branch. Then you don't have to add them.
Sure, but if you change the whole stack.
Yeah, you can choose. I think I forgot. Does new PR work with robot? Can you tell it to? Yeah. So you can do ep new PR, give it an easyconfig file, and say -- robot. Like if there are any easyconfig files that are not in develop yet, pick up on them as well, include them in the pull request. So it can do it when it needs to. Yeah.
And then I guess my other question was so the user has to know the number of the pull requests for the update PR stuff?
Yes.
Okay.
How else would you do? How would you look up which pull request you need to use? If you can answer that question, I can make it automatic. But. So
you could presumably cache the pull request that you sent if they were doing it from the same
you could do
machine
some caching on the user side. Yeah, that could work. Yeah, but if figuring out the pull request number is too much effort, then no. Wait, we could. Yeah. Yeah, but it's a good point. It's a good point. You just have to. Well, it's not always possible because sometimes updating a pull request means adding an extra easyconfig file which was not there yet, and you cannot figure out from the 10 PRs you have open where it needs to go. You would still have to tell it, but there may be situations where it may be possible. Yeah. Sure. I'll get back to this later with some stats on what is meant for the community. The last phase is the one we're in now. It's EasyBuild 3. In EasyBuild 3, again, we made a couple of breaking changes. The biggest one was switching to lmod by default. So it's just changing a configuration option if you want to go back to the old stuff. And we declared the GitHub integration stable because it was experimental before. We started doing user meetings rather than hackathons because we were, let's say, beyond the point where we needed to get more contributions. We were getting enough contributions already. And these had like 30, 40 people attending, with sometimes even people flying in from Seattle into into Belgium for attending an EasyBuild meeting, which is blah. But okay, it was happening. We also moved from the HPC Ghent flag to a community organization. To make it very clear to the community, this is not an HPC Ghent project anymore, it's a community project. So we're still doing a lot of work on this, but also lots of other sites are working on it. So it's not really an HPC Ghent owned project anymore, it's broader. We started requiring checksums in pull requests, so whenever you open a pull request for an easyconfig file, we require that you include checksums for files and patches, and if they are not there, we will simply not merge your pull request. And we started, or at least I started asking people that were very active in the community, can you please help me out with dealing with the contributions, because I'm like, it's impossible. We're getting too many, and I don't have enough time to do this. And we also have this maintainer of the week thing, where we ask the maintainers, like, next week, who is up for keeping a closer eye on pull requests? And then they try to spend, so the aim is like an hour per day throughout the week, which helps a lot. We always have somebody, let's say, on duty, keeping an eye on things. And this is other than myself. A Slack channel, YouTube channel, where we collect the talks, including this one. So yeah. This is a picture from the last EasyBuild user meeting. There's even SPAC people there as well. This is Massimiliano, one of the core. He came because we invited him to give a talk on SPAC, so we're still doing the open thing, getting lots of other projects. Reframe was presented there as well. And we're trying to do this every year now, getting a bunch of people together, talking about what they have been doing with EasyBuild, where EasyBuild is going, or which other projects are interesting to use together with EasyBuild in a very loose sense. Very happy with the pickup, even by companies and large HPC sites, so it's been very cool. Mailing list Slack channel, if you don't like Slack, you can jump in our IRC channel, which is tied to our Slack. So people on IRC can talk to people on Slack. Todd also showed some stuff like this. So one of the difficult things when you have an open source project is figuring out how many people are using it. You don't really know. You just throw it on the web and people pick up on it, and is actually anyone actually using it? The best way I have figured out, and Todd stole this idea from me, is looking at the documentation and see how many people are visiting it and from where. So we're getting like 500 weekly visitors in the EasyBuild documentation, except in the end of December. People don't like working on EasyBuild in Christmas holidays. And yeah, the sun never sets on EasyBuild. So we're a lot of activity in Europe, also in the US, and even Australia, and some stuff in Asia as well. So we're assuming here that if you visit the documentation, you're probably using EasyBuild, or at least you have some interest in it. So that's really the best way you can tell. So we have a bunch of maintainers now, which is really cool because it helps me a lot. We actually have 12 maintainers. Most of them are in Europe, but we have a guy in Singapore who's very active. We have a guy in the US, and also, where's Bart here? A guy in Canada. The others are in Europe. This has helped me a lot with keeping myself sane. And those are, let's say, experienced people. Some of them have been making changes deep in the core of EasyBuild, and others mostly focus on easyconfig files, but that's fine. At least we're getting a lot of help with dealing with contributions. The Slack channel has been fairly active. We don't have numbers on IRC, but we see it going up as well. So people talk to each other, find each other on Slack. We're seeing a shift from the mailing list to Slack. So people like the interaction more, or experience that they can get better feedback or quicker answer to their questions on the Slack channel. Major developments here, I guess the main one, two main ones are hooks. So we have support for hooks where you can easily customize EasyBuild. Any part of EasyBuild you don't like, or where you say there's something small missing there that I really need for my side, you can implement it in a small Python module and give it to EasyBuild, like for this step, do this extra thing before you continue, and lots of people have been picking up on that. And support for generating container recipes and also building the images using EasyBuild, and I'll show a little bit more about that. Trace, I already showed this on Wednesday. This is just, it gives you more details while EasyBuild is still running, like it's hanging and what is actually going on in the background. So here when you build TensorFlow and you use the /trace, it will tell you yeah, Bazel is running, it's running with 6 cores, and it's doing this, and this may take a while. So while this is running, you just see this. When it completes, you get the timing. You at least see it's still actively doing something, or you know what to check on if it takes a while. A while ago, I had something funny. It was running a configure script with -- prefix, and after half an hour, it was still running. I was like, why does configure take half an hour? It turns out the configure script was a custom one, and if you gave it an option that it didn't know, it went to an infinite loop, and -- prefix was one of the options it didn't know about. So yeah, this has helped me as well. I already talked about the container recipes and images on Wednesday, but just very quickly, this is new in EasyBuild. It's experimental, so we don't consider it stable yet. It may change a bit compared to how it works now. But what we do is when you use EB containerize, we generate a container recipe that will use EasyBuild inside to install the software. Yeah, so that's what's here. And if you give it the extra option to build the image, it will call out to sudo singularity build to build the image as well. So rather than you having to build it by hand, you can give it the container configuration, and it will generate recipes and images in a certain place. So how does it work? For now, you have to tell EasyBuild to use this as an experimental feature. You can, for example, say I want to build a CentOS image, so you use the Yum bootstrap for singularity. You give it CentOS 7 as a version, and then you do EB containerize TensorFlow, and that's the only command you need to run for it to give it a recipe. And here I'm doing it in 2 steps, because maybe you want to check the recipe first before giving it to singularity. So this is the location of the recipe. If you're happy with it, you can give it to singularity build, and after a couple of hours of waiting, in this case, you will get a TensorFlow container image optimized for the host on which singularity build was running. So this is pretty cool. It's still under development, so we don't consider it stable yet. And actually here I got some ideas on how to improve it. So that's cool, and we'll work on that in the coming weeks and months. This is the evolution of supported software. So we're now at, this is not including extensions, but we're close to 1800 software packages. We started out with 148 in EasyBuild 1.0, including very early on we had support for OpenFOAM and Wharf and trilineals. So some of these nasty things that people were spending days on to get to compile by hand. And it quickly grew. So certainly in this range, it was like spiking really quickly. And this is when we started worrying about incoming contributions. It was like, it's almost too much. And now, yeah, we have support for TensorFlow as well compared to PyTorch. And you can install Spec with EasyBuild if you want. Contributors, we have lots of contributors as well. This is, so EasyBuild is split into 3 repositories, the core, the framework, the EasyBlocks, which are the Python modules that define the build procedures, and then the easyconfig files, which specify the versions of the dependencies and the software and all of those details. We get a lot more, unique contributors. So we have over 200 unique contributors in easyconfig files over the years. Less so for EasyBlocks and framework, because these require actual Python coding. So you have to be a bit more familiar with EasyBuild to help us out there. But we're very happy that we got over 100 contributors for EasyBlocks. That is not something we expected here at all. This is unique contributors per year. So last year we got close to 90 different people opening pull requests for easyconfig files, and it's hard to tell whether we are halfway here or not, but I'm hoping this is going to break the 100 unique people, the 100 different people that contribute easyconfig files in a year this year. For framework and EasyBlocks, it's a bit less and a bit up and down. But I guess it depends on what people find or what people want to add in the core of EasyBuild. And this is then focused on easyconfig files. This is just counts per year. So we get, in the last couple of years, we got 1,600 pull requests per year for easyconfig files. And the way it looks now is we're probably going to break, if it keeps going the way it's going this year, we'll break the 2,000 mark. So 2,000 pull requests in a single year for a project you're not working on full time is a lot. And this is easyconfig files, so they're easy to make, but they do have do require a bit of effort to test, and we make sure you have a test report for them. And every now and then something breaks, and you really have to dive in and like, why is this broken? Or why is it broken for me and not for you? So there's quite a bit of work there. So I'm very thankful for having a bunch of maintainers that help us. This is the same numbers, but split up into PRs that are created manually or PRs that are created with the new PR feature. So you see here we have like, this was like 70% or maybe a little bit less of the pull requests were opened with new PR, the rest was done manually. This year it's over 80%. So people are really learning that new PR is the way to do it just because it's so much easier. And it helps the maintainers as well because they know they get always the same format of contribution, so it's easier to focus on the details that matter. EasyBuild 4 is coming up. It's not there yet. We're working on it. One of the major triggers for releasing a new major version is adding support for running EasyBuild on top of Python 3. So right now we only support Python 2. We're also, so the latest release now is 3.9.2. I don't want to go to 3.10 because the version ordering is, I don't like doing that. We did that before and we didn't run into big issues, but it's just easier. It makes sense to do 4 now. Keep it going up. What we're actually going to do, we're going to roll back a decision we did in EasyBuild 2. So this is where we added VSE-Base as a proper dependency. We've learned the hard way that this is not a good idea. And it has a lot to do with how VSE-Base is managed, which is managed by us. We're not doing a very good job at that. And it was blocking us from making progress on adding support for Python 3 because VSE-Base doesn't support Python 3 yet. So what we did is we copied all the code we need from VSE-Base into EasyBuild, we ported it there to Python 3, and then we say, bye-bye VSE-Base, whatever the fuck you're doing, we don't care anymore. We have what we need, and we'll just continue. And we took it a little bit further. We also dropped setup tools, which is also, can be annoying. It causes some weird issues, especially on older operating systems. So EasyBuild 4 will not have any required dependencies anymore. Just standard Python is enough. And we do have some optional dependencies for certain features, like the new PR things. You may need dependencies if you want to use those features, but for the regular features, you will not need them. A couple more changes, lots of them are detailed. We'll take this opportunity as well to make some backwards incompatible changes. So this is why EasyBuild 4 hasn't been released yet. But the hope is still to do this in summer, which is now quite close. I'm hoping to do an alpha release in the coming weeks, and let's say by the end of August have the stable 4.0 out. The current status is like these 3 things are done, these 2 we're working on, this one we're thinking about, and these are like some of the changes have been made here already, and we want to make another couple more minor backwards incompatible changes. The main thing is support for Python 3, which is pretty much done. It's done in a separate branch of the repositories. We've added support for Python 3. We have not dropped the support for 2.6 and 2.7. We're going to keep that. So people that use EasyBuild on top of Python 2 now don't have to worry. It's done in the 4.x branches. We've done the ingestion of VSE-Base, which was like a prerequisite. The current status has all the unit tests pass and all the repositories on top of Python 3. And we can build and install TensorFlow and OpenFOAM as well, I think, using EasyBuild running on top of Python 3, so that means it's pretty much done. There will be corner cases left and right that we may hit where we do further testing, but that's not there yet. And in terms of effort, it was like 50, 60 hours of work, mostly by myself, to make it work also on top of Python 3, which is not that bad. It was a lot less work than I was expecting to. And this includes all the packages as well, which we've done up until now. One of the major future work things I want to work on is more extensive and more organized testing. So we're doing a lot of testing already, doing a lot of regression testing before doing a release, but it's sort of ad hoc. It has some messy scripting outside of EasyBuild around it. I'm the only person doing the regression testing on our infrastructure, which is fine because we have enough gaps on the system where I can just push in the tests. It doesn't need a whole lot of resources, so that helps. But then there's a bit of manual work to, like, some builds fail for no good reason. If you just redo them, then they'll work. And then you have to look at, is this something we should fix in EasyBuild, or is it just because something was wrong with the node on which the build was running? Should these failures be blocking the release or not? So you spend a bit of time on doing that. And there's nothing public to let people know, like, what worked, what didn't work, or what the known problems are up until now, so we could do a better job. What I'm really hoping to do is setting up some shared testing infrastructure for the maintainers, so the maintainers can work together with doing regression testing. And we can take this a little bit further compared to what we're doing now. We could test for different operating systems by leveraging singularity containers, so running EasyBuild in a container with a different OS, no matter what the host is running. And even taking it a step further, so some sites are using QEMU to build software for a specific processor rather than doing it bare metal on the cluster. So they're emulating the instruction set they want to build for, then they get the binaries and they just copy that onto the, this is maybe not the recommended way of building stuff, but we could leverage this to test for ARM without having access to an ARM system. And just see how well EasyBuild works on an ARM system. I guess that could work. I haven't tried it, but yeah. Yeah, I have no idea how. Yeah, yeah, I don't know. You have to try it.
Is there? I mean, why not AWS? Why not cloud for that stuff?
We want to use cloud as well, but getting access to cloud that has power or ARM and also even getting control over whether you run on a Haswell or a Skylake in the cloud.
AWS has ARM.
Yeah. Okay, but as far as I haven't used a lot of AWS, but can you control whether you run on a Haswell or a Skylake?
You can set your instance type, and I believe you're guaranteed something in that family. And so, like, if you say 5x large, like, I believe that's the Skylake or something.
What we were using on Wednesday on AWS didn't give us that fine-grained control. So if it can, then if it can be done bare metal, then yeah, sure.
You gotta pick your instance type.
Yeah.
When you set up your instance.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so we definitely want to start testing also for ARM in some way.
Power is hardware, but
Yeah. Yeah, so you can give us access to Sierra so we can test EasyBuild there.
yeah,
We can talk about it.
our rates are higher than
One other thing we've noticed that, so when we want to test in a container image, the first plan was to do it in a minimal container image that has as less things as possible, so not things like Boost, because that will be installed through EasyBuild anyway. We've also figured out that sometimes we see failures because stuff is installed in the host, because EasyBuild picks up on the thing installed in the system rather than the dependency that you give it, because it prefers system packages or stuff is hard-coded for some software that it forces it to look into the host first before looking some other way. So we probably need to test with both minimal and fat configurations of the image. Use cloud, because yeah, if we want to share it with people around the world and give people access to it, this may be the only real feasible option. And also using reframe to drive this regression testing could make sense, yeah. I was originally planned to talk before SPAC, so I was planning to steal some of Todd's thunder, which doesn't work now because I switched around. But yeah, I can say that SPAC sucks. Now, a question we get a lot is how EasyBuild differs from SPAC, because on a high level they are quite close. They do something like installing software, scientific software on HPC systems. They're both implemented in Python. They look very close to certainly people not familiar with the community. But there are some key differences. So the license, if you care strongly about not using a GPL license, then yeah, maybe SPAC could be a better choice for you. This is like something I always mention. Todd agrees with me. No, Todd doesn't agree fully with me on this, but EasyBuild has been stable since 2012. SPAC is still 0.x, which sort of says it's not stable, but apparently that's not the case according to Todd.
Maybe just make the 1.0 release.
Yeah, tag it now. I can get rid of this line. In terms of supported software, it's more on par, I would say. There's certainly lots of software in Spec that's not an EasyBuild and the other way around. So maybe that could affect your choice. Another point that Todd disagrees with is that, in my view, Spec and EasyBuild were at least originally targeted for different use cases. And this ties with the flexibility that Spec gives you on the command line. Spec seems to me is more oriented towards software developers who want to play around with different versions of dependencies and get a lot of flexibility there. While EasyBuild is more, or that's a certain target we have, it's more towards support teams that need to install software for somebody else. And the GitHub integration we have is kind of like a confirmation of that. I don't see Spec adding support for something like new PR, because everybody knows Git anyway who uses Spec.
But, I mean,
Maybe I'm wrong, but yeah.
you pointed out, even though you did it for naive users, you found it very useful yourself.
Yes.
As a power user, so
Yeah.
that might suggest
That could be convincing enough.
I guess I would just say we target all three, right? Like, Spec was built to support the user support team as well. And then it was also targeted at developers and users who just want to install stuff.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say that like I wouldn't say we're solely targeting developers.
That's not what I'm saying either, but that's the main use case for it, I would say. Python 3 is not there yet for EasyBuild, but we're working on that hard. It should be there soon. macOS is EasyBuild works on macOS, but the easyconfig files we give you will not work on macOS because it's not what we test for at all, and we don't really care about it, to be honest. So it's not a target platform for us. We focus on Linux HPC systems, and both projects are a nice community behind it who are friendly and helpful, and so there's certainly no difference there. If you want to get more details, I did a talk on FOSDEM comparing Spec, EasyBuild, and also Conda, Nix, and Geeks. It goes into a little bit more detail, so you can take a look at that. And then to wrap up, this is non-technical, but a couple of things I've learned over the years when working on EasyBuild. So if you start a project, be careful. You may start a community around it, and then you're in trouble, sort of. This goes back to the Spec comparison. No two projects are equal, even if they may seem very equal. At the first sight, there's probably good reasons why both of them, or even multiple of them, are there. EasyBuild, Spec, Conda, Nix, Geeks, they all have their certain focus, and they certainly have a reason for being there. So just make sure you're informed when you have a need for one of these projects, and make sure you pick the right one. Time is a bitch that takes no prisoners. If you start getting lots of contributions, you have to make choices. Do you focus on the contributions? Do you focus on implementing new features? Documentation should be here, which I forgot. And yeah, you still have a personal life. You still want to give talks and promote the project. And there's real work as well on top of this. Being able to spend time on the job as a part of my job, I need EasyBuild. I need to make it better to keep myself sane and to install the software that our users need, and that's a major help because I'm basically being paid to work on an open source project, which is a major help. Don't take skills for granted, so when new people come into the project, don't assume that they are fully aware of how things work in EasyBuild or even how to build software from source. Maybe they don't know about all of this stuff yet, and you may need to help them out a bit, or even if they ask stupid questions, just try to answer their questions and make things clear, and hopefully just give them a pointer to the documentation where you can say, read this, and hopefully it helps. And I was discussing this with Brad a little bit earlier. Even though you have lots of cool functionality, it's very awesome, it will take time before people pick up on it. And it could be the best thing ever, but people will have to make the jump and start using it and convince themselves that they actually need it as well. So you still have to sell the work you do. That's what I had, and I hope there's time for some questions.
Any questions?